Welcome to Game Day Preview on Jackets TV, presented by Ohio Health. I'm Bob McElligott, alongside of Blue Jackets assistant coach Dan Hinote, and the Blue Jackets continue their homestand here today, getting set to take on the Edmonton Oilers. Dan, this Edmonton Oilers team, we've been saying the same thing about them for the last couple of years. Very young, very talented, and again, they had that number 1 overall pick, so they added Nail Yakupov during the summertime. What does adding another fast and flamboyant, very skilled forward do for this team?
Well, they're on the map for that exact thing. They have it in spades, but for the most part, when you continuously do that, eventually some of these players are going to turn into superstars. You know, it's not always a formula where every single one's going to, but you're going to get them eventually. If you have high draft picks and you do a good job with your scouting, eventually these players are going to turn into superstars. Jonathan Taves, Kane, Richards, Carter, these tandems that the NHL has put together, Perry, Getzlaf, through drafts, have turned into success and Stanley Cups. And I think they're on that line. They have that kind of talent. I know the addition of Schultz on their back end was a huge addition for them. And so, they're doing the right things there. Of course, when you watch their games over and over, they're making the same kind of young mistakes that a young team makes. And so they're going to suffer through that as the growing process. But, their systems are in place. They do a pretty good job with their structure. And they're one of those teams like Chicago that you turn a puck over in the wrong area, they're going to put it in the back of your net.
Okay, but that being said, with a young team like you have, and a team that can get offensively challenged on any given night, when you have a team that tends to maybe run around in their own zone a little bit, get sloppy in their own end in front of their goaltender, how much do you need to exploit that with your team?
That's going to be the biggest part, is playing as much of the game in their end as you can, because that's where youth kind of falters, is their D zone. They're always really good, on the offense, right? That's where they want to play. That's where they've always been good. And it's the teaching part of hockey where defense comes in, and so that's where you would expect a young team to struggle a little bit. But they've done a really good job with their system there. They're not running around like it's not crazy in their own zone, but it is a place where we would like to exploit them. So as much as we can, we want to get pucks in to their zone. We want to play behind their net. We want to spend as much time bothering their goaltender that we can and keep their offensive guys playing defense.
Well, you're finally now about, a month into this whole thing. You're finally getting to a point where in a normal season, things would be settling in and everybody would get their game going. And that's where you are right now. You just happen to be about a dozen games into the schedule. But that being said, what have you learned about your team? As coaches, now can you assess this team a little bit better as to what you have, what you need, what you're getting from players, and what you still need to get out of certain players?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been a learning process. There's a lot of learning to do. The problem is we just haven't had a lot of practice time. So there's things we need to address, things we'd love to have time to go over, but the totem pole is pretty big, and you really got to get to the top stuff first. And then the bottom stuff kind of suffers because you just don't have time to practice in the schedule. You're playing every other day, and you got to give the guys rest. So, 10 games have gone by, but we've probably only had maybe 2 practices. So there's stuff that we've figured out as a coaching staff. Now we just need to get it to our players as much as we can on the ice. We can show them video and you can talk theory in the room, but until they've actually done it on the ice, it's kind of hard for them to grasp it.
Has it helped in the last week and a half, 2 weeks? You've actually had some games where you play and you have 2 days off before you have that next game. As you said, the players still need rest, but at least you're getting allotted 1 day that you can start to work on some things, which you didn't have for the first 2-3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, those days right now are like gold. We get a chance to bring the guys out on the ice, and even the guys love it too, because we were out there for the practice was a good hour, and the guys were still out there at about the 2-hour mark, working on stuff. And so you can see they still have the hunger to want to get out there and work on things as well. But those days are golden. You need to have those, and now our schedule's getting to the point where we can start to implement some of this stuff. And so we're excited for them as well. And plus, you do get the rest days, because as you saw in a couple games, not just ours, teams start to wear down. You get injured, you get tired, and mistakes happen that way. So those days are important.
Let me get this straight. You're in the second week of February and teams like practicing? That's not normal.
I know. It's like their biological clocks are all screwed up now with this lockout.
Well, tonight's game gets underway at 6 o'clock here at Nationwide Arena, and you'll be able to watch the game on Fox Sports Ohio. You can listen to it on the Blue Jackets radio network or right here at BlueJackets.com. And by the way, I'm going to put in a shameless plug here. My radio partner, George Matthews, and I know, roll your eyes. George Matthews and I are going to be at the Tim Hortons right here at Nationwide Arena at 4:30 this afternoon. We'll be there for a half an hour. Can you believe a place that serves coffee and donuts wants me to come and try to endorse it?
You're the perfect spokesperson for such a thing.
Well, you know, I try to.
You're like
I'm
Jared,
glad-
except the opposite.
The opposite of, yeah.
Yeah, you're growing, whereas Jared is shrinking.
You see, exactly. That's why they try to match me up perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think it'll work well.
Donut shop.
For Dan Hinote, I'm Bob McElligott. Thanks for watching today's Game Day Preview on Jackets TV, presented by Ohio Health.